How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today I want to do something a little bit different. I want to go over 10 different benefits of owning 0.25 Bitcoin. Now, I think when you start your Bitcoin journey, you get really excited. You start setting different goals, which makes sense, just like your net worth journey. They are a bit arbitrary, but there is some magic to the quarter Bitcoin status. I want to go through that today. If you don't mind, hit subscribe so that you can see future videos just like this. Also, if you're excited about Bitcoin, if you think it's going to go up or you think it's going to go down, if you want to amplify the amount of Bitcoin that you have, you can use leverage using Margex. There's a link to this underneath the video. Basically, you can get access to more capital. So you have to know what you're doing. You have to understand trading a bit, but it can be fairly simple. There's a link to this underneath the video. You don't have to KYC, meaning you can set up your account in just a few minutes because they don't ask you a bunch of personal information. And you can trade all different kinds of assets from Bitcoin to Solana to Ethereum, and you can use different forms of collateral. So if you want to trade Bitcoin with Bitcoin as collateral, you can do that. If you want to trade Bitcoin with USDT as collateral, you can do that as well. So definitely check that out underneath the video. Now, let's start here. 10 benefits to owning 0.25 Bitcoin. There are 60 million millionaires, only 16 million Bitcoin if you account for the Bitcoin that's lost, Satoshi's Bitcoin, that kind of stuff. So all the millionaires in the world can only buy about 0.25 Bitcoin. Keep in mind, there are a lot of people that have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin as well. So really, there's not that much available Bitcoin, even for every millionaire to buy 0.25. So if you buy that, you are going to have more than most millionaires will ever touch. Okay? And we will get to some new stuff, too, that's happened in the last day or so in this list. Keep in mind, though, there are only ever going to be 60 million people that can buy 0.25 Bitcoin, but eventually there will be more millionaires. So while I say there are 60 million millionaires and split up evenly, they can buy 0.25. The fact is, a lot of them won't buy any Bitcoin. Eventually, there'll be 100 million plus millionaires. There'll be 150 millionaires. Like, our inflation rate just continues to go up. So more and more people will become millionaires. Houses continue to increase in value. But there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. So the fact is, you're buying an asset that can't be diluted as opposed to every other thing in the world. So that's number 2, right? There will eventually be a lot more millionaires. There will be people that are considered wealthy that just can't buy this amount of Bitcoin. Number 3, you have $20,000 in a liquid asset. Now, some people would say, who cares, right? If I have $20,000 in my house or $20,000 in Bitcoin, the fact is, having $20,000 in a liquid asset provides you a lot more flexibility. It's very hard, or there are a lot of roadblocks set up to get equity out of your house. You either have to get a HELOC and then there's an interest rate, or you have to get, or you have to refinance, or you have to do something else. But when you have money in a liquid asset, that can be really good for opportunities. While Bitcoin does typically go up around 50% a year, the fact is there are some opportunities that can do even better than that, right? Maybe you want to start a YouTube channel and you take $1,000 of Bitcoin, buy equipment, and then you can make $10,000 a year or 20 or 30 or whatever it is, right? Or maybe you have some emergency that comes up and instead of going on credit card debt, you can actually use some of your Bitcoin. I know everyone wants to hold their Bitcoin forever, but if you don't have other assets and you have some Bitcoin, that is an easily accessible store of value. So that's number 3. Number 4, that's almost $20,000 into an appreciating asset. Bitcoin typically goes up 50% a year. Most people don't have an asset that does that, right? Maybe they have some money in money market. Okay, so they get 5% on 20 grand. They have $1,000 a year. Or they have some in the S&P 500, goes up 10%, great. A lot of that is locked up, but you have something that's liquid that also appreciates, and that's a significant amount, depending on how old you are, obviously. But if you're in your 20s and you have $20,000 in Bitcoin, That's very significant, right? Even if you're 30s, whatever it is, $20,000 in an appreciating asset is more than most people have. Now, that's not the be all end all. Like, you should strive to get more than that, but still, that's a good goal. And when we consider where Bitcoin might be at the end of the cycle, if you just take what it's done in the past, right, from 2017 to 2021, it went up 3.5x from the top to the next top. If it happens the same way this cycle, we're looking at about $250,000 Bitcoin. A quarter of a Bitcoin would be worth about $60,000, which could be a down payment on a home, right? So that is a very sizable amount, and it's not the worst time to be buying Bitcoin. Obviously, if you had bought $20,000 worth of Bitcoin at the bottom of the bear market, that would have been great. You would have gotten a full Bitcoin. But the fact is, as time goes on, it gets harder and harder to buy whatever amount of Bitcoin because it just continues to appreciate. So buying it now, while it's not as good as buying it 6 months ago or a year ago or a year and a half ago, it might be the best time that you have for the future. Okay, so we've done 4 or 5 of them. Now, you have to remember, there's only 6% of Bitcoin left to mine. That's number 6. There's only 6% left to mine. Over the last 15, 16 years, we've been able to mine, or the mining industry has gone 94% of the supply on the market. Right, we've mined 94%. Almost 20 million Bitcoin is available. Now, for the next 116 years before there's no more block rewards, there's only 6% of Bitcoin left. So there's not going to be this rush of supply that we've seen in the past. We're actually going to see, most likely, each cycle, every few years, there's going to be less and less available Bitcoin to buy. And at the same time, number 7, wealthy individuals are buying like mad. Take a look at this. We have news every day, it seems like, of large inflows going into ETFs, right? These are wealth managers, these are hedge funds, these are people saying on their brokerage account saying, I want more access to Bitcoin, so they buy. So IBIT bought $70 million worth of Bitcoin yesterday, which is over 1,000 Bitcoin. Keep in mind there's only 450 Bitcoin mined yesterday, and this is just one ETF. Keep in mind ARKB had a $110 million day. So this is how much Bitcoin has been bought this week. 8,300 Bitcoin, 87 Bitcoin, 5,700 Bitcoin, 6,500, 7,000, 4,000. So there's only 450 Bitcoin mined each day. So this week, there's about 3,150 Bitcoin mined and about 10 times that bought by the ETFs. We also have individuals that continuously buy. Now, some people look at Mr. 100 and they see outflows. But what Mr. 100 is actually doing, if you go into the transaction, is just moving it to other wallets. He has probably hundreds of wallets now that have Bitcoin in them. So Mr. 100, some people look and they think that he's selling, but individuals like this are shifting money around so that you can't see the Bitcoin as clearly. That is pretty crazy. So you have wealthy individuals that continuously stack Bitcoin. I think that's number 7. We're also going into a time of higher liquidity. So you have lower interest rates, you have higher liquidity, there's more money flowing around. People generally put money in riskier assets at times like that because the cost of capital is much lower. So they flee to Bitcoin. Well, the last couple of years has been hard for wealthy individuals to want to put money into something that is higher risk on the spectrum of risk, because we've had higher rates, and yet Bitcoin's still gone up significantly over the last year and a half. Now we're starting to see rates come down. What do you think is going to happen moving forward? Also, there's more uncertainty, and BlackRock has said that in times of uncertainty, people flee to Bitcoin. They think people flee to Bitcoin. So, interesting there. Number 8, I think, you can own something that is not attached to the banks. So you can access your money, your capital, your Bitcoin, money as in some kind of value that's stored in a currency. So you can access that at any time. It doesn't matter if it's a Sunday at 2 a.m. and something happens and you have to send money to some contractor across the country or across the world. You're hiring someone from a different country. Your bank gets shut down. They go bankrupt. and you're not insured after the FDIC limit, you have some stored value that you have access to all the time on a network that does not go down. That's pretty powerful. Also, worst case scenario, some kind of global war breaks out, you can have that capital and you can take it with you. You can't take your rental properties with you. I know that's an edge case scenario, but when you're wealthy, you think about things like this, okay? You also can't be debased by politicians in greed. Number 9, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. So if someone comes in and says, I'm going to give money to everyone, or I'm going to provide the stimulus, you're not losing out on your hard-earned value by debasement. So no matter what, you own 0.25 of that max 21 million Bitcoin. Compared to, let's say you have $20,000 in US cash, that eventually will go down to zero versus the entire liquidity or the total money supply, right? Like as time goes on, you need to stack more capital on that from that $20,000 because otherwise it infinitely goes down to zero versus the infinite amount of money that's going to be printed. Compared to holding 0.25, eventually there will be more Bitcoin. Maybe we're already there now. There's going to be more Bitcoin lost each day than there is Bitcoin mined. So you're actually owning part of a deflationary currency, which is really interesting. Okay, number 10. There are still people that haven't been able to buy Bitcoin. Like the ETFs came this year, and a lot of capital was unlocked to start buying Bitcoin. We saw 20, maybe 21 billion in inflows now go into these Bitcoin ETFs. There's still a lot of people that have not had access to Bitcoin yet. A lot of corporations won't buy Bitcoin until accounting rules are changed or until their banking institution can custody it for them because they can't go buy securities. They can't buy a ton of securities, right? They can't go buy IBIT and put $10 billion in it because of the structure of their business, but they can buy a commodity like Bitcoin, but they're waiting for their financial institution to allow them to do that or to have the rails to be able to do that for them. So there's still a lot of capital that will be unlocked. Even just yesterday, we got news that the SEC approved NYSE options trading spot Bitcoin ETFs. So that means that there are entities that typically wait to be able to hedge their assets that now will be able to buy Bitcoin. There are cash flow investors that wait to be able to sell options on their portfolio so that they can get constant cash flow that will now be able to buy Bitcoin. That is really cool. And there are entities as well that continuously stack Bitcoin over and over and over. Here's a question for you. What other asset do all companies put on their balance sheet? I'm trying to think. Cash, treasuries. There aren't a lot of, I guess there are a handful of companies that maybe stack gold, but not a ton. I know Palantir's done that, but when you look, Bitcoin is one of those assets that we have a handful of companies right now, maybe a couple handfuls, that can continuously get debt to stack more of this asset. It's interesting, isn't it? What happens when there are more and more companies that do this? Just something to think about. Okay, we're adding a little bonus here, number 11, or 10.5, however you want to see it. If you're buying Bitcoin, you probably understand what's happening right now with macroeconomics, with just where the money supply is going. So you understand the game. So if you get to 0.25 Bitcoin, you probably start to understand this kind of stuff. So you're probably going to do fairly well financially, right? If you're in a position to be able to stack $20,000 of an asset on top of like an emergency fund and all that solid base stuff, if you are at this level, if you just surveyed everyone that has 0.25 Bitcoin, sure, you're going to get some degens that just have like nothing besides this, and they're, that might offend some people, but like these people, they're much more risky that just don't have any kind of financial security outside of Bitcoin. You're going to get some people like that. You're going to get some people that maybe traded meme coins and made a lot of money and then threw it in Bitcoin that don't understand it. But I'd say most people that have 0.25 Bitcoin probably understand the game. They understand the game that politicians are playing. They understand the game that corporations are playing. They understand how to make money. They understand how to preserve money and how to grow money. So just because of the fact that you are at 0.25 Bitcoin, you're probably going to do really well in life. Let me know your thoughts on these underneath the video. Do you think this is helpful? Maybe I can do more of these in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Check out the links underneath the video to MargX and to BTCC in case you want to trade even more assets. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.